There we go. Hey, how's it going? April 8th, we're here with Jeremy Shear as he gives his informative speech here for CCBC's public speaking class.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to talk about the effects of carbon dioxide on the environment. Carbon dioxide is the main contributor to global warming. It's a natural phenomenon and the effects cannot be entirely halted. So keep driving that big SUV, burn that coal, and waste that electricity. It's not going to make a real difference, or will it? Prior to the start of this speech, I handed out a flow chart outlining the processes by which carbon dioxide is emitted into the atmosphere. There's a direct correlation between information on this flow chart and information in my current speech, so feel free at any time to look over the chart because it does contain valuable material. Recently, the EPA has placed tightened restrictions on greenhouse gas emissions. Irreversible impacts can be expected if current atmospheric carbon dioxide levels increase from the now 385 parts per million to a level around 500 parts per million within the next century. Some of you may recall the Dust Bowl era. This is a period in the 1930s which saw huge devastation by droughts and dust storms, and it was centralized around the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma. About 100 million acres of land was completely destroyed during this period. The effect is exactly what's going to occur today if we don't begin to monitor and reduce our carbon dioxide emissions. Although it may be an adventure to drive through the desert, nobody wants to live there permanently. Greenhouse gases are an unseen terror. Have you ever parked your car on a hot day in the sun with the windows rolled up and returned several hours later to find the temperature inside unbearable? This is caused by sunlight entering your vehicle, heating up the air inside, and that same air that's heated up is trapped by the windows, creating somewhat of an oven. This effect is the same as global warming. Carbon dioxide acts as the windows, allowing sunlight to enter into the Earth's surface, heat the air up, but the atmosphere traps that heat in, producing global warming. In America alone, every 5.3 seconds, 1,000 tons of carbon dioxide is released into space. In America alone, 23,000 tons of carbon dioxide have been emitted since the start of this speech. So exactly what is carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide is a simple chemical compound consisting of two oxygen atoms attached to a carbon atom. It occurs naturally, and it remains in a gaseous state at standard temperatures. During a process known as photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is converted into oxygen. So naturally in winter we can expect higher levels of carbon dioxide when plants hibernate, and conversely in summer would expect lower values when plants are thriving. Nonetheless, carbon dioxide is still the main contributor to global warming. The main generator of this gas can be attributed to the combustion of fossil fuels. Since we have a general idea of what carbon dioxide is, let's talk about some of the effects it has on our atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is speculated to be the main component in the greenhouse gas effect. This is in part due to the extraordinary amounts of carbon dioxide being released into the atmosphere. As you may or may not know, greenhouse gases inadvertently cause global warming. Scientists concluded that over the past 100 years, carbon dioxide levels have risen some 10% and have increased the height of the atmosphere, altogether lending to global warming. What exactly is the greenhouse gas effect? Certain gases allow sunlight to enter the atmosphere freely. This sunlight strikes the Earth's surface and eventually gets radiated back towards space as infrared radiation. Greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, absorb this infrared radiation and trap heat on Earth's surface between the atmosphere and that surface, creating increased overall temperatures globally. If greenhouse gases remain stable, the amount of energy absorbed and the amount of energy trapped would kind of cancel each other out, and there would be no change to the climate. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Mankind tips the scales by clearing forests and burning fossil fuels, such as oil and coal. Now that we have touched base on what the effects of carbon dioxide are in the atmosphere, let's discuss who the main contributors are to this global pandemic. So who are the world's largest contributors? You guessed it, mankind. Mankind is by far the biggest contributor to greenhouse gases. On average, we evolve approximately 22 billion tons per year. The major portion of these emissions come from our consumption of fossil fuels. Non-energy use of fuels comes in a close second under fossil fuel consumption. The second monumental contributor to greenhouse gases is none other than Mother Earth herself. Erupting volcanoes expel roughly 200 tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere each year. Hopefully everyone has a better understanding of the logistics surrounding carbon dioxide. Just to be safe, let's reiterate some of what we learned here today. 63,000 tons of carbon dioxide was emitted by America alone during the inception of this dialogue. In terms of understanding greenhouse gases and their effects on humanity, we have to develop a comprehensive knowledge of what carbon dioxide is, what the effects of this gas pose on society, and thirdly, who the major contributors are. Even though carbon dioxide is a simple chemical compound, the irreversible damage it causes is terrifyingly complex. As a whole, mankind may have placed itself into a pressure cooker and it may not be able to turn off the heat. So why should we care? Mankind is a unique species in the way that we are not as adaptable to climate changes as other creatures. For example, imagine if the oceans would rise and come inland a few miles. No big deal to most wildlife, they would just forage for food elsewhere. But humankind, on the other hand, this may wipe out a few major cities, and with limited living space, well, you kind of get the picture. The increasing levels of carbon dioxide will eventually lead to an event similar to the Dust Bowl era, previously discussed. With food sources being specifically bred, changes to climate could drastically affect mankind's ability to feed themselves. America alone, during the course of this speech, has emitted 80,000 tons of carbon dioxide, and the whole world has just now emitted 480,000 tons of carbon dioxide in total. Thank you all for attending.